Hi, welcome to my channel. This story is about an unknown streamer from Twitch. Being almost at the top, he died unexpectedly while broadcasting a game. Moments later, he was reborn in the world of action game. He saved all his experience from real life, and the system informed the player that he was the first king in the game. Rewards will be given out and available for use. The protagonist was very happy. Suddenly, someone came up and gave the guy a fatal blow with a sword to the stomach. A strange warrior told the protagonist that he thought he was king. Now he can't atone for his sins. The medics wanted to save the guy. Someone shouted that they had to give first aid to a wounded 20-year-old man. His pulse dropped to 0 and resuscitation was necessary. Bai woke up very abruptly and jumped up. He shouted very fearfully to himself. The guy looked around very surprised. He didn't understand what was going on. He clearly remembered being stabbed, but he didn't realize where he was now. The protagonist looked around frightened and saw a huge number of bodies around him. The player thought he had gone to hell. He was sitting on the great mountain of corpses in an unknown location. The player tried to remember something. It felt like his head was going to fall off. The boy concentrated and looked in front of him. He immediately remembered everything about himself. The main character remembered his name. He was 20 years old and was a streamer. He was not popular at first, but his fan base started to grow because of the streamers. The guy very clearly remembered that he had played Throne of Souls. The action in the game takes place in the Middle Ages. Then an alien ship suddenly descends into the world. It brought modern technology. Many players were put off by the high difficulty. They preferred to watch walkthroughs of the game on streams. Bai was very pleased because of the high number of views. When Bai reached the top, he was killed. The guy heard a system voice. He recognized that he had been reborn. The system informed the host that he had been revived in the game. Bai looked in surprise before him and realized that he was inside the game. The guy realized he died under strange circumstances, but he still got another chance. The main character was unhappy because he was unable to be reborn in a game more suited to him. He yelled that it would have been better for him to die. The system informed the man that the key of rebirth was a special reward. There is no such thing in other games. Bai said capriciously that he's seen enough while playing this game. It's not going to be easy for him to get all sorts of perks. The system told the player that he has to show what he can do, and he will be on top again. The guy this time can get a good reward in the form of a time travel key. He will be able to return to his world. Bai explained that there is no infinite rebirth mechanism in the game. Because of the high difficulty, he could be killed even by a stray dog. The system informed the player that he already has quite a lot of achievements on the platform. The guy will be able to easily choose a character for himself, and this will give all sorts of equipment. Bai was very surprised because of the fact that he had the opportunity to choose any character. The main character thought that he couldn't remember the walkthrough from all the streamers. He decided that if he could use all the characters' gear, it would be a very good thing for him. The system told the guy that he could choose a regular peaceful player. Bai thought to himself that if he chose a peaceful player, he would face starvation and disasters. He even thought that the system had planted a peaceful character on purpose for him, so that he would try harder to become a lord. The player reported in a confident voice that he had lived as a normal person for 20 years and didn't want to take it anymore. He asked the system, "Is there any time limit on becoming king?" The game told the guy that there were no limits or penalties. It asked the player if he wanted to go down the path of becoming a lord. Bai answered in the affirmative. The system reported that the contract was signed. A voice told him he could sit on the throne again. The protagonist looked to the sides in surprise and realized he was somewhere upside down. The player was surprised to tell the protagonist that he thought he had died a couple days ago. He interjected, "Was the Bai reborn?" Gray was with the other characters. He asked for the main character to bring them down to earth. Before the monsters came back, they had to run. A player named Chaos said that Bai is very timid and will not help them. A character in the form of a cat named Dagu said that Princess Mina and the royal lands now matter. The protagonist looked at the girl in front of him minutely. He thought the Kingdom of Stars sounded familiar to him. Bai thought to himself apprehensively that these heroes couldn't be met so immediately. The cave didn't look like a gathering place for newcomers either. The player frightenedly thought that if he had chosen a peaceful role, he wouldn't have died so soon. Bai was standing on a pile of bodies and saw the crying cave in front of him. He figured it was just some kind of hell. The system reported that rebirth was a beginning and an end. Bai could choose the way of the king and face death immediately. The protagonist saw the Anka game village around him. He thought that he had to appear in the village for level 1 to 10 to begin with. The guy knew that he then had to go do the Burn Jungle mission for level 10 to 20. Bai was inside the Crying Cave. He realized that for starters, he needs to choose a class and somehow get out of this place. The host requested the system to activate class selection for him. The player was offered to choose a brave warrior with a long sword and a powerful shield. He had a perfect balance of attack and defense. There was also an interesting mage available for the main character. It had the perfect combination of attack and healing. The guy got the option to choose a character called Assassin. He had a combination of fast attack and agility. Within the game, there was also a character called the Elemental Master available. He combined ranged and melee combat. He could control the power of the natural elements. A character called Outcast was also available to the player. He had no special characteristics. He only had rags and a club. Bai chose Outcast for himself. He explained to the system that the choice of class in the game affects survival in the beginning, and you don't need to get carried away with all the perks. The guy explained that he was looking at high difficulty. This player class is the most comfortable. It has a hidden feature. The system informed the player of the first mission. He had to get to the exit of the Weeping Cave. As a reward, he would get 1 point of account unlock. Bai was in the cave. For him now, the most important thing was to survive and get out of this place. The protagonist stood looking at the other fighters. They were tied upside down. Bai saw a rope tied in front of him. He thought that his friends did not know what the consequences would be if he untied it. Gray thanked the protagonist. Dagu said in a disgruntled voice that it would have been better for him to continue hanging from the ceiling and die there in peace. Chaos in his hands held the unconscious girl. He shouted fearfully that Gray must now bring the princess to her senses. Gray said with a smile to his friend that he was already here. He hadn't noticed the danger at his side. Someone hit Gray hard and he flew into a wall at high speed. His friends were scared. A huge monster appeared. It was the Bloody Axe Modik. He said in an angry voice that his lunch should not stick out unnecessarily. The Modik swung his huge axe and shouted very loudly. The main character realistically imagined how the monster would kill his friends. He thought that if he decided to escape, he would have to face the dungeon boss. The battle would be very difficult, and he had no skills. So Bai would condemn himself to death. Bai told himself that he should go to the cave alone. He would get a reward there and unlock his account. Then he would consider whether or not he should go back and rescue his friends. The protagonist turned around and walked with his baton towards one of the players, angrily shouted to him that he was going to escape alone. Gray shouted unhappily that the guy decided as if he could get out on his own. Chaos said in a disgruntled voice that the protagonist was an outcast, stupid and cowardly. Bai said in response to the players that they would soon be able to figure it out for themselves. The protagonist saw a huge beast in front of him. It was a full monster with a club hand. The monster laughed evilly. He looked at the man with burning eyes. After that, the boss swung his baton and ran forward at the guy. The player thought that it would be difficult for him to defeat a level 5 monster. The boss swung around and tried to hit the man with his baton. The protagonist dodged in time. The monster hit the guy with all his might and the protagonist fell to the ground. Chaos said with surprise that the protagonist had dodged twice and was very lucky. Dagu said that all reborn were very strange. He himself now wanted to die. The protagonist sat down in a fighting stance. He thought he had no equipment, but he had enough experience. The monster swung his arm viciously and threw a small bomb forward in front of him. There was a very powerful explosion and a bright flash. The boss laughed out loud. The monster was very surprised to see a guy with burning eyes rushing at him. The protagonist swung his club and hit the monster on the head. He decided it was time to chop it up. The protagonist pointed his baton at the monster and shouted that he was finished. The baby plague beast looked fearfully at the man. He was already badly beaten. The protagonist swung his baton and hit the boss with it with all his might. Gray said with surprise that the protagonist was able to kill a level 5 monster and didn't take any damage with the club himself. Dagu replied in a sad voice that he was jealous of the monster. Bai sat and leaned his club on the ground. He thought that he was able to dodge the blow due to his experience, but he wouldn't be able to quickly catch up to the monster in level. His characteristics are still very weak if he chose a player from the city. He needs to adapt to a special style of play. He needs to avoid combat as much as possible. Bai looked at the system table. He had 900 points left to upgrade, so killing monsters was ineffective for him. He decided to get out of the cave as soon as possible. Connected players asked the main character to save them. Some of them promised to give the guy golden gear. Mina told her friend that if they could get out on their own, then they were destined to die. Princess Mina advised the protagonist to be more careful. She reminded him that there is a thin line between life and death. Bai was walking with a club on his shoulder. He answered the girl that he had a plan, but he didn't want to tell her about it. He promised his friends that he would come back to save them. The players got angry. They thought the protagonist was messing with them. Gray shouted to his friend Chaos to think about how they could get out. Bai thought to himself that his friends would be able to escape without his help, but then he would miss out on the achievements that would be associated with Princess Mina. The protagonist realized that saving the players was tied to whether he could get out himself. There were many different secret items in the Weeping Cave. The main character decided to go to this place to meet fewer enemies. Bai hid behind a rock. He saw a huge fighter with a hammer on his shoulders walking through the cave. The guy heard a voice from the side. A talking bull was calling him. The voice said there was a man inside the vessel. The stranger said that he went to the dungeon to find treasure. He hid in a bowl to hide from the monsters, and then accidentally got stuck. The stranger asked the protagonist to break the bowl. Bai swung his club and shattered the bowl into tiny pieces. Inside the broken vessel was a fighter named Reyes. He thanked the protagonist and promised to help him with any mission. Bai fearfully informed his new acquaintance that his friend had been captured by monsters, but he was too weak to save him. Lucci replied to the protagonist to show him the way. The protagonist was walking with his friend. They saw a dangerous monster on the side. The adult Chelno and the 18th level beast swung his hammer to strike the humans. Lucci rushed forward and started attacking the boss. He yelled that he was the one who shut him down in the bowl. The fighter swung his blade and struck the boss in the stomach with all his might. The guy chopped the monster's head off with a swing. He yelled to the protagonist that they needed to move on. Lucci put his sword on his shoulder and put his foot on the monster's head. He said he heard his friend's voice from there. Bai stood beside him silently. Bai said he didn't know how much longer his friend could hold out. He was standing near a large cliff. The protagonist told his companion that his friend needed to be rescued as soon as possible. Lucci shouted happily that there was one quick way. He tapped the protagonist from behind with his foot. Bai, after a heavy blow from his companion, began to fall deep into the abyss. Lucci said in a happy voice that when he sees someone on the edge of a cliff, he immediately pushes them over. The guy told the protagonist that even though he saved him, he is still a reborn. Bai should be punished if he is found out. The protagonist asked his companion how he had determined that he was reborn. Bai was surprised because Bai had fallen from a great height and was still alive. The main character shouted that if he had jumped on his own, he would have died. But he was pushed, and so he was okay. Bai felt pain in his body. He was able to pick up his gear at the bottom of the ravine. Lucci began to walk off to the side. He yelled for the protagonist that he was going to die anyway since he was stuck in the abyss. The main character consumed the liquid from the cup. He did not understand what the rebirth mechanism was. The system informed the player that reborn people rose from the dead under known circumstances. Bai realized that important information wouldn't just be revealed to him. He decided that he had to be careful. With the consciousness of a reborn, he couldn't die before his time. The main character was holding a glowing rock. He thought he didn't need to worry about it. Bai looked around carefully. He noticed that there were no monsters behind him, but it was still very dangerous. Throne of Souls is an open-world adventure game. Players are looking for clues from NPCs, monsters, and bosses. This is all done in order to uncover the truth of the world. The protagonist has fully completed all the levels and gotten all the achievements. He knew everything about this world except a few little things. At the center of the world called Pascalo is a huge crystal. It is called the World of Souls. Under its protection, the world was full of harmony and life. A spaceship from the deep void appeared over the city. A spaceship crashed near the crystal. That's how the world was destroyed. Although the crystal was broken, life continued and new civilizations emerged. The main character was in a place where one of the ruins of an underground civilization used to be. The boy thought there was an underground river deep beneath the Weeping Cave. He needed to get to the exit alive. The chance of dying in this place for the protagonist was much higher than on the main path. It was necessary to determine the location of the ledges very precisely. The protagonist stood near the edge and looked into the abyss. Bai jumped into the abyss. He thought to himself that he had been on the verge of death many times. The guy jumped onto a ledge in the wall. He figured getting to the bottom wouldn't be a problem. The lower the protagonist descended, the smaller the ledges were. He had to be careful. Suddenly, the guy slipped very sharply on one of the ledges. The protagonist snapped and gradually began to slide down the slope of the gorge. He managed to stop on one of the ledges. Bai looked down into the abyss in front of him. He almost fell straight into it. The stranger came up behind the protagonist and told him angrily that the exit was downstairs. The protagonist looked away frightened. He didn't realize who could be next to him. Bai turned around abruptly and asked who was behind him. The stranger bounced back. The fighter was jumping up and away from the protagonist. Bai asked him who he was. The stranger's name was Harvey. He told the protagonist that he had a temper. He himself appeared very suddenly from behind. Harvey angrily told the guy that he should have stabbed him in the heart right away. Bai angrily asked the fighter who he was, and what was he doing here? The protagonist realized he was seeing in front of him a reanimated guy he had seen dead in the abyss. Harvey turned out to be reborn as well. The fighter said in an angry voice that he had been reborn as a 28th level elemental master. The warrior swung his arm and shouted for Bai that he didn't even want to waste his time killing such a player. The surprised protagonist was wounded very badly in the side. Bai told the fighter that the two of them were reborn and should help each other. Harvey looked angrily at his opponent and said that the main enemy of a reborn is another reborn. Bai swung his baton and knocked his opponent. He shouted that he wouldn't believe such nonsense. Harvey told the guy that he didn't want to waste any more time on him. He added that Bai had shown him the way and he wouldn't kill him. Harvey bounced to the side. He shouted that the protagonist must now fight for his own life. If Bai survived, he could get revenge on him. Bai asked the system what else it was hiding from him. The system told the player that he had to reveal the hidden information himself. The system reported that the reason for the increase in brutal murders among the reborn is unclear. Bai Chi can get soul points and blood points. The system reported that reborns can have different classes. They can also randomly transform into creatures of different races and levels. The strong can identify low-level reborns at a glance. Each reborn's class contains unique information about the world. The exception is the outcast class. Outcasts can obtain unique information by changing class. The main character was going down the ravine. He figured he was almost dead and didn't need all this information. The guy was climbing down a ledge in the wall and suddenly stopped. The main character screamed very loudly. He was hanging on the ledge and couldn't let his hands go from it. Bai thought to himself that he had a chance to be reborn. He couldn't miss it. The protagonist angrily told himself that he must endure any pain. The guy started to fall from the height down. His body bounced off the ledges in the wall and hit the ground. The protagonist was lying on the ground. He was 10 meters from the exit and needed to crawl. The guy looked around. He heard some strange smell and sound. The player saw a beast with curved fangs beside him. Bai frightenedly plopped down on the ground. He knew there shouldn't have been any monsters in this place. The protagonist turned away from the ravenous monster fearfully. He thought that there shouldn't be any monsters in this place. The player decided to take advantage of the beast's slowness and crawl to the exit as soon as possible. Predatory eyes began to fly out of the monster's body. Bai sat fearfully on the ground. He realized that the monster had sped up a lot. Small predatory eyes appeared around the man. The protagonist got scared. He guessed where the demon could have come from in this place. Bai thought to himself and realized that the monster could have been lured to this place by Harvey and decided that the only thing left for him to do was to die. The monster screamed angrily. Predatory eyes flew at the man in a pack. The protagonist thought he shouldn't underestimate such an experienced player. The guy couldn't help himself and fell into the green river. There was a big splash, the man screamed. The water in the river began to eat away at his body. The mutation turned the river into a real acid. The protagonist felt a great pain in his body. He couldn't give up. Bai realized that his clothes gave him some protection from the acid, but to the monster it was deadly. The protagonist was moving slowly along the river. He had to find a way out at any cost. Bai thought he had a chance for a fresh start. He didn't want to end up like he had in his previous life. The main character was born in a poor area to go to a good city school. He left home. He was a part-time worker. He washed big mountains of dishes in the kitchen. A guy was reading books in his dorm with a flashlight. The upstairs neighbor yelled at him for disturbing his sleep. Bai went to university, but his mother was diagnosed with a serious illness. He tried to earn money, but still couldn't save his mother. The main character worked for a delivery service. He brought the goods to a customer. The man angrily said that he would give the delivery man a bad review because he was late. Bai decided to take up gaming arrows. His popularity skyrocketed. Being at the very top, the main character died unexpectedly. Death didn't bother him much. but he didn't want to do it again. The guy was lying in an acid river. He thought he was reborn into a game he knew very well. Bai lifted himself out of the river. He thought he was already out of luck from the start of the game. The guy got to his feet confidently and decided to run away from this place as soon as possible. Bai told himself he wasn't going to die for anything. He was rushing forward. The guy told himself that he absolutely had to survive. Predatory eyes locked onto his body. The system informed the player that he was able to successfully leave the Weeping Cave. The system reported that the player had randomly unlocked a new game account, followed by a very sudden, very bright green explosion. The system informed the player that he had used the Holy Blood Essence. The system reported that the player wore a set called Bloodthirsty Shadow. The guy also took the Scarlet Death Dagger. It was the ultimate weapon for an assassin. There was a bright explosion and predatory eyes started flying in all directions. The main character stood in his battlesuit. He said the end had finally come. The protagonist told himself that this is what a reborn should look like. Predatory eyes lunged viciously at the man. They prepared to attack him. The protagonist began waving his weapon in all directions and fighting off predatory eyes. Bai held the sword in his hands. He told himself that it was best for him to take the inventory from his old account. He took so far 25%, but that would be enough for him. These would be top-level items. The guy swung his sword. He said loudly that his story was just beginning. A huge pile of predatory eyes spread out from all directions toward the man. The protagonist was walking sideways. He told the monsters they could be patient. The system informed the player that he should kill the beast with curved fangs. He would end up with 3 times as many soul points. Bai tossed up the blades in his hands. The protagonist cheerfully told himself that he had been waiting for this mission for a very long time. Bai activated a combat skill called Scarlet Flame. He shouted to the monsters that they were about to turn into ashes. The protagonist rushed forward. He shouted that the fight was just beginning. The main character angrily lunged at the monster and yelled that he was about to die. The beast screamed very angrily when it saw the man next to it. It screamed that it would tackle him very quickly. Bai swung his blade and slammed it into the demon with all his might. The monster screamed very loudly. Bai shouted to him that he would pay for all the suffering he had caused him. The beast screamed loudly. The system reported that the deep cut was causing excruciating pain for the monster. The monster screamed very loudly and viciously. The protagonist prepared to attack it further. Bai shouted angrily for the beast that he would put it out of its misery now. The protagonist used shadow absorption against the demon. With this skill, the host could create shadow clones for himself. The demon shouted angrily. He saw several warriors flying from above him. The protagonist rushed forward and landed right in front of the monster. The system informed the host that he had killed a rare beast and completed the mission. He was rewarded with 18,000 soul points. The protagonist jumped up. He thought he had hung his level in one go. It was all thanks to the fight. Bai thought to himself that it was very hard for him to level up in the game. The guy remembered how he had previously summarized the rules for gaining soul points and leveling up. The system informed the host that he had received gold coins and a crystal blood recovery vessel. Through the prayer of piercing suffering, the host was able to receive sharp blades that pierce space. The protagonist looked at his information in the system table. He chose the assassin class for himself, and for him the most important was the dexterity score. The guy took a closer look and decided for himself to choose other items to play with. Bai thought grudgingly to himself that he had a lot of cool weapons and kits. He had only unlocked a small part of his inventory so far. Besides the assassin, he had unlocked 2 more kits. Bai read the information about the skills called Dragon Blood Armor Set and Dragon Spine Sword. The protagonist read information in the system window about a skill called Starseed Prophet and Deep Space Beacon. He thought to himself that the other unlocked items would help him survive for the first time. The protagonist hesitated. He decided he should go back to ask the princess a minute, or better yet, leave. Bai couldn't exactly understand how much the game had changed. Because of the Reborn, there could have been other innovations that could have changed the original settings. The guy didn't know much yet. He didn't want to go to risk alone. He decided to join the princess. Bai thought to himself that if his friends betrayed him, he would still have support for a while. The protagonist abruptly snapped out of his seat and ran forward through the cave. Bai ran into the cave and saw a huge pile of various bodies in front of him. There were bloody footprints all around. A whole group of ravenous monsters angrily lunged at the guy when they saw him in front of them. The protagonist used a skill called Piercing Suffering against his attackers. He pounded his hand into the ground. Bai said to himself in a happy voice that he was almost rid of the monsters. Only the boss was left on the main path for him. The protagonist saw Princess Mina's reputation in the system window. Bai thought the same about his reputation. The player read the information to himself. He said to himself that he had managed to be discussed in harsh words. The players were still tied upside down in the cave. They were discussing the protagonist. Dagu told his friends that death wouldn't be such a bad exodus. The princess told her friends that the protagonist had abandoned them because their skills were inferior to others. She informed them that she was the leader of the team and would take charge. Gray told the girl that they had sworn her allegiance, and she didn't have to apologize. As metal discs flew in from the side and cut the ropes, the players began to fall down. One of them shouted to protect the princess. The players hit the ground. Cat Dagu was able to radiate and land on his feet. The dog was very surprised. He said to himself in a sad voice that he was not dead again. Chaos looked at the princess with attention and asked, "Is she all right?" Gray looked away in surprise. He didn't understand. Did someone save them or was someone trying to kill them? The main character showed up in a battlesuit. He said he was just getting a little revenge for the insults. The fighters were very surprised. They felt they knew the voice next to them. Bai told his friends with consternation that the boss would be here in a minute, so they don't have time. The protagonist cut the ropes on the player's arms with a knife. The princess asked the Bai, did he really decide to help them? The princess told the guy that she was grateful to him. Bai replied that in 40 seconds, disaster would strike. So we should grab our weapons and run. Chaos was displeased with the protagonist's words about the princess. Gray was surprised because of the fact that Bai had risen to level 10 in half a day. The protagonist told the fighters that they themselves are very weak without him and won't be able to handle the boss. Mina drew her sword. She told Chaos that this was no time to argue. Everyone should prepare for battle. The princess said she would never miss a glimmer of hope. The fighters drew their weapons and prepared to fight. Bai noted cheerfully that the princess hadn't changed much as long as he was able to team up with the fighters to fight the boss. The protagonist shouted that there were 10 seconds left. He set off a storm trap in front of him. Bai said cheerfully to himself that the first part of the battle was already beginning, at which time a huge flying monster appeared above the people. The boss landed and shouted to the men that the prey should not stick out too much. The Modic stood there with a huge axe in his hand. He asked the protagonist why he was always trying to escape. He threatened to roast him. The monster stepped forward and stepped his foot on the thunder trap. The Modic screamed very loudly. Lightning bolts went through his body and he felt a strong shock. Fighters with weapons from all sides rushed out to attack the boss. Modic asked the men angrily, how are they going to deal with him? He managed to knock the Chaos. The monster glanced to the side and saw several sharp blades flying at him. Modic thrust his arm forward. He calmly defended himself against the flying weapon. The demon angrily shouted to the humans that they were only teasing with their worthless attacks. Modic swung his axe and chopped the green tentacles. He shouted to the humans that they couldn't stop him. The mod shouted angrily to the players that they shunned him like cowardly rats. The demon shouted angrily to the people that he would wear them out, and their screams were a delight to his ears. The players continued to fight. One of them said fearfully that the princess would soon run out of strength. Mina shouted fearfully to her friends to ignore her. They needed to fight back against the demon. The monster glared angrily at the princess and said that he would start with her. He swung his axe. Mina held out a magical pentagram in front of him. The demon swung his axe very powerfully and was able to strike the Chaos fighter. The Modic laughed evilly. He asked angrily to the princess how long could she last. Suddenly, the monster felt a strong pain in his body. Someone was attacking him. The demon turned around angrily and saw the protagonist from behind. Bai stabbed him in the back. The guy used acid from the river Styx against his opponent. The protagonist jumped up and rested his hand on the demon's head. The fighters were surprised because the Bai was so agile. The boss was very wounded in the back. There was a green glow behind him. The Modic banged his hand on the ground with all his might. There were huge, deep cracks. The fighters rushed forward to attack the demon. Cracks in the ground approached a huge pile of bodies. Someone shouted that the boss had gone crazy. After a huge explosion, bodies started flying far away. People's bodies began to come back to life. An angry red light appeared in their eyes. The boss has activated the reincarnation of the dead. The monsters are ready to attack the humans. The protagonist shouted to the players to stop the dead. He wanted to deal with the boss himself. The protagonist shouted to the players not to miss a single dead man. The fighters prepared to fight. Modic angrily said something to the man against him alone. He demanded Bay show him his trump cards. The protagonist thought that the boss was recovering quickly and the acid would last another minute. Princess Mina would be fine. If he didn't die, it was necessary to finish the fight in a minute. The boss glared angrily at the man and asked why the man was hesitating. Bai swung his blades in his hands. He used Scarlet Flame. The protagonist angrily shouted to his opponent that death would be for him. He ran forward. The main character felt a strong blow from the monster in his body. The demon shouted to him that only bones would be left of him. The Modic grabbed the man's head and prepared to finish him off. The protagonist remembered that he had died at the hands of this boss at least 30 times. The demon swung his axe to knock the man. He ran at him with all his speed. The demon thumped the axe with all his might and hit the ground. The guy managed to jump to the side. Bai realized that his opponent is very fast. With his health level, he would not withstand more than 2 attacks. The guy realized that he has to endure the last 2 minutes. Then he would use poison to take away his opponent's health. The Modic in all directions waved his axe. He angrily shouted to the guy that he was only confident because of his speed. The protagonist jumped up sharply. He dodged an attack from the monster. The princess looked away. She was surprised because of the fact that the guy was able to dodge all of the boss's punches perfectly. She realized Bai was a professional. The boss angrily told the man that his skills would only be able to help him a little. The monster raised the axe in front of him. The protagonist realized that the 3rd stage had begun. The Modic swung his axe in all directions. He shouted that the protagonist would not escape his bloody dance. Bai was holding his sword. He thought that in the 3rd stage the attack range increases, making it difficult to dodge. Even a light hit can cause damage. The protagonist looked excitedly in front of him. This, he thought, was exactly what he had been waiting for. Chaos told Gray he had to fight against the dead. He himself wanted to stay against the boss. Gray said fearfully that he couldn't do it alone. Modic raised the axe above his head. He yelled to the guy that this blow would be his last. The boss noticed he didn't get a chance to hit the guy. The man disappeared off to the side somewhere. The main edge jumped up. He used a skill called Shadow Bite. Modic was surprised because of the fact that the man was able to teleport. The protagonist rushed to attack the monster. He was starting a melee. The guy knew that in the 3rd stage, the boss's attack speed slowed down. It was possible to use Shadow Sting to enter a certain radius. The boss angrily shouted for the man that he was hurt, and the man hit him from behind. Chaos said fearfully that the protagonist would die if he got hit from a long distance. Gray said the guy was able to turn the fight around. The monster swung around to finish the guy. The protagonist managed to dodge. Bai held the blade in front of him and prepared to lunge at his opponent. The protagonist rushed forward against the boss and hit his body. The mod screamed angrily. The demon angrily swung all directions with his sword. He shouted that some minced meat had gotten him to this state. The monster prepared to use a blood-sucking rune against the man. A whole herd of monsters appeared. The boss shouted for the man to regain his health and tore him to pieces. The guy frighteningly thought that the boss shouldn't have such a skill. The protagonist used an insurmountable barrier against the monster. The mod was cut off from communication with the world and could not heal. The princess angrily told the players to forget about the dead people and focus on the boss. The Modic swung his axe and lunged at the girl. He yelled to the princess that she had ruined his plans. At this time, monsters from all sides ran up to the players. Dagu called out to the princess fearfully. The demon swung his axe to strike the protagonist. Bai had time to put up a defense in front of him. A frightened princess called out to him from behind. The girl said in a very excited voice that she felt very sorry for. Bai explained to the girl that it was his own fault. He had gotten distracted and put everyone in danger. The Modic swung his axe and yelled to the man that he was going to swat him. Bai got into a fighting stance. He said that this punch would solve everything. The princess was standing next to him. The mod looked at the guy angrily. He sensed that his opponent's aura was very dangerous. The mod turned around and yelled to the guy that he would take pity on him. People were surprised because the boss started running away. The vicious monsters started dropping dead to the ground after the boss escaped. The fighters ran up to the princess and shouted that they were too late. Mine replied that the most important thing was that they had survived. The protagonist ran to the side. He yelled to his friends that they shouldn't relax. Mine yelled to the guy that they now need to get out of here as soon as possible. Bai ran as fast as he could to the side. He shouted to the fighters that he had his own plans. The protagonist used a skill called the murderous shadow stance against the boss. Bai shouted in an angry voice that the boss must die. Bai shouted that if they let the boss escape, it would end sadly. The other players had their levels raised. The protagonist's level increased. He also earned 15,000 soul points. The guy thought he had passed the main test in the Crying Cave. He could now catch his breath. The protagonist received a Bloody Dance of Fury battle axe as a result of the battle. He also got a necromancy book. With it, he could control the dead below level 30. The protagonist also got himself a rune that sucked blood. The princess told the guy that he was totally right. She thanked him for saving her. Bai told her that they would talk later when she got back. The main character thought it was a match. But there were a couple of contradictions. He decided it was because he himself was a reborn. Gray said with surprise to the protagonist that he had become a completely different person. Dagu thanked Bai for saving him. Chaos apologized to the protagonist for being hostile to him. The system informed the host that Princess Mina now had a friendly level of trust in him. Bai realized that as long as Princess's reputation was high, he should gather more information. Out loud, he told the fighters that he was just an ordinary reborn that everyone wanted to get rid of. The girl cheerfully told the guy that he was really special. She told the main character that there was someone else helping for them, besides him. Bai was very surprised to hear about another strong reborn. The main character excitedly told the princess that he had just been reborn and wanted to learn more. The girl told the guy that they'd better not stop here for long now. She suggested they talk on the way. A group of fighters were walking through a cave. One of them said they were finally safe. Another player said there were still plenty of monsters around and they shouldn't relax. The protagonist decided to his companions to begin the story of the Reborn as a whole. The guy said that the Reborn appeared right after the Fallen Star War. They think differently than normal humans, and most of them are very violent. Initially, the Reborn were ignored until an ancient prophecy came to pass. The prophecy said that the world would collapse, and only a few would be able to rebuild and unite it. Each country regarded the awakened as heretics and refused to believe that power would be stolen by some loner. Mina said with excitement that the Reborn, who helped them, turned out to be very honorable. The princess turned around and told the main character that he looked a lot like her familiar Reborn. The princess informed the fighter that his fate would be sad because of the world's hatred. The girl turned around and tossed the protagonist her battle blade. Bai put his arm forward and managed to bring down the weapon flying at him. The princess told the boy that he was holding the blade that the Reborn had given her. The system informed the owner that this dagger could conceal the owner's true identity. Bai thought to himself with surprise that he had never seen a dagger with such an effect. The girl told the protagonist that with this dagger, he could quickly find the Reborn. Chaos told the princess that after she gave up the dagger, her identity would be revealed. Gray was also displeased. Mina replied to the fighters that she had thought about her decision, and there was no need to object. The protagonist thought this dagger would come in handy for him. It would hide high-level reborns for him. Bai thought that the princess's destiny is not to be queen. Princess Mina was to live as a member of the royal family. But there was a catastrophe. The crystal was shattered into 8 fragments. As a result, the world went through great turmoil. There were no living beings on the ship of a distant space expedition, but unknown genes got on the ship and caused mutations. As a result, the apocalypse began in the world. To protect the world, the Star Kingdom mobilized its forces and banded together. They engaged in mortal combat with an army of mutants. The Star Kingdom depleted its resources and its decline began. Eventually, the 8 chapters declared independence. Each took a shard of the Stone of Peace. Princess Mina is still considered a thorn in the side of the 8 lords. The more pressure the princess was put under, the more she stopped short of restoring the kingdom. Gray walked sideways to the protagonist and said that it was very good that he bought the corpses of the plague monsters. The Dagu pointed his finger in the direction. He said there was a way out, and he was not dead again. The princess ran into the light. She shouted to her friends that they were almost out. The girl jumped out into the street. She was blinded by the harsh, bright daylight. The protagonist and his companions ran outside. They stood against the background of nature. The princess cheerfully told her friends that it had been a long time since they had seen sunlight. She spread her arms out to the side. Chaos cheerfully told the players that they were free to go. Gray shouted happily that they didn't have to stare into the darkness anymore. The princess turned to the protagonist and thanked him. Bai replied to his interlocutor that the dagger she had given him was enough for him. He wondered where they would all go next. The protagonist stood looking at the princess with great suspicion and interest. She told him thoughtfully that they had one thing in common. Gray said they had an important case. Chaos explained to his friend that the protagonist had saved them and they had nothing to hide. Mina smiled and said she was a little embarrassed to talk about it. The princess said that they took the mercenaries, but they betrayed them and left her with nothing. The mercenaries also stole something important from her. The main character knew that the star core had been stolen from the girl. This necklace was made from the core of the crystal of the world. It was the symbol of the royal family. This item was one of the most valuable in the world. Mina told her friends that it was all her weakness and naivety that was to blame. Chaos said in a frightened voice to the princess that they were very weak to protect her. Gray said in a disgruntled voice that the mercenaries disguised themselves and they didn't notice anything. Dagu said that it would be very difficult to find the fugitives. The princess said the mercenaries would have to be found. The protagonist told the surprised companions that he knew where the fugitives were. Chaos angrily asked the protagonist, so how could he know where the fugitives were? The girl grudgingly told the protagonist that she didn't believe what he said. Mina looked at the protagonist incredulously. She studied him with her gaze. The boy inquired of the girl had he ever cheated her. Chaos angrily reminded the protagonist that he had lied to them, even though they were newly acquainted. The princess told her companion that she had a strange feeling, as if the great stone were easily removed from her breast. She was prepared for the worst. The main character grabbed the girl by the shoulders and told her to follow him from now on. The princess looked happily at the protagonist and said she would. Chaos demanded of the protagonist that he not familiarize himself with the princess. The main character, along with his friends, went into a burned-out jungle. There were years of earth fires going on. A bright fire raged among the trees. One of the monsters wanted to catch up with another mutant. A huge predator appeared from behind. It jumped up sharply at the other monsters and devoured them. The predator viciously chewed his victims. His mouth showed trails of blood. The players boiled a large predatory iguana and roasted it over a fire. There were about 30 men in the mercenary camp. They lived in tents. One of the fighters said cheerfully that the princess had been gullible and had revealed her true identity. The mercenaries were sitting and chatting among themselves near the fire. A fighter named Yuri asked his boss how much longer they should stay in this hole. The boss of the mercenaries was named Hades. He walked up to his men and held some kind of crystal in his hands. The warrior looked at the stone. One of the fighters asked the boss, "What is this necklace?" Hades clutched the jewelry in his hand. He really wished he had killed the princess and her fighters last time. One mercenary told the boss that there was no way the woman could have survived in the Weeping Cave. Another fighter said in an angry voice that the princess and her warriors had become food for the creatures in the cave. Mina came up from the side and asked the mercenaries how could they betray her. The boss grabbed the girl's face with his hand and told her that he was not betraying her, but helping her. Hades explained to the process that she must give him her necklace and become his woman. Mina angrily replied that she would rather die than give him the jewelry. The boss tossed the girl aside. He yelled that she was very stubborn and didn't value her life. The boss tells the princess that her companions are a bunch of losers and she will watch them die. The princess was very angry. She couldn't help her warriors. The boss prepared to put the necklace on himself. He shouted to his subordinates that they would go to the nearest village of Ankara in the morning. One of the fighters said cheerfully that they were finally going to leave this hole. The warrior grabbed the girl and carried her away. Another soldier told him that he had a lot of energy in him. The mercenary asked the boss what he would do with the necklace. He offered to sell it in the nearest country. At that time, a small furry monster ran up to the people from the side. The boss stabbed the monster with his blade with all his might. He told his subordinate that they should maximize their profits. The boss informed the fighter that the closest country to them is the Duchy of Eileen. There are many poor artists in that state. It is better for them to sell directly with Hydes County, who have more money. Hydessa County had many mountains and springs. It also had a strong army. Eileen Duchy had good farmland. Wambaha County had excellent hunters and carpenters. The boss pulled out the jewelry. He told his subordinates that they were underestimating the impact of the necklace. The purpose of war is profit. One of the fighters offered to keep the necklace and use its power to found the country. The boss explained that he felt an ordinary gem in his hand. He didn't feel the power in it. Hades explained to the mercenary that you can't covet a power you can't control. The boss told the fighter that in life he should make a lot of money and live happily ever after. Hades informed the fighter that they need to prepare for tomorrow. They are going to the village of Ankara. The players looked at the bodies of the fighters. One of them said that if it wasn't for the Bai-Ki abilities, the entire camp would know that they had survived. The princess asked the warriors how would they get back if the mercenaries outnumbered them. Chaos said he couldn't just throw himself into the enemy camp. That would be the death of him. Gray suggested that his friends wait until late at night. when they could sneak in and do it quietly. The protagonist told the fighters that they can't wait for the night. They have a maximum of 3 hours. He explained that the mercenary leader is very cautious. The princess told the guy that for now they'd have to give up and look for another opportunity. Bai replied that there was still a chance. Players started asking the protagonist what are his ideas. Bai explained to the satellites that their main disadvantage is their numbers. He has the ability to compensate for that. Deep in the jungle there is a nest of red fire spiders. Their level is 10 to 20. The main character told the players that they should go to the nest and lure more monsters out of there. Bai informed his friends that they would bring the spiders to the mercenary camp and they would pit them against each other. Monsters will be needed in the camp to take the mercenaries by surprise. Bai decided to lure the spider boss to put the plan into action. The players were very surprised that the protagonist wanted to lure out the boss alone. The level of Red Flame Widow was 30th level. Gray told the protagonist that his plan is impossible to carry out. They won't be able to leave the battle quietly. Invisibility spells can only be performed by Dagu and the princess. Minu said that her invisibility spell is a single spell, not a group spell. If she and Xiao Miao together become invisible, the monsters will attack Gray and Fang Ji. Fang told the main character that if he died, he should take care of the princess. Dagu said excitedly that he could throw himself at the spiders and die a horrible death. He told his friends not to worry. If they followed his plan, no one would die. Bai tossed the glowing bubbles to his friends. They looked at them in amazement. The water from the shadow vessel was water from the River of Shadows. It could help the player gain the power of invisibility. A device called the Whisper of the Gods allowed free communication within a 1,000-meter radius. Freezing Grenade gave the ability to activate a chain of freezing explosions. The players were very surprised. They asked the main character, how did he get so many unusual and rare items? Bai told the fighters that, together with the subject, his plan would go very smoothly. Mina said with excitement that deep space items were rare and only served for the royal family. Mina reported that there is even a religious movement in the modern world that worships deep space objects. This includes the Academy of Deep Space Watchers. The Academy members turned their research into military power. They sold it to the highest bidder. The results of their research contributed to the technological advancement of the human world. But they began to plunge the world into chaos. On the black market, items from deep space can be very expensive. The main character told the princess that she was selling such items on the black market to pay the mercenaries. But she lost all the money and the ancestral necklace. The princess asked the boy fearfully, how did he know about it? Bai answered her that he had guessed it. Bai promised the princess not to worry, they'll bring it all back. Mina thanked the guy. The main character's words gave her confidence. The system informed the host that he should help the princess get the necklace back. The reward would be unlocked account points. Bai asked the system, what are the methods of increasing the reward? The guy got a detailed answer about such methods. Bai thought, concentrating to himself, that after he helped get the necklace back, he would need to focus on unlocking the account. He still had one more doubt. It needed to be tested in battle. The protagonist led his friends onward. He said that they would have a monster spider's lair ahead of them. The fighters must keep in touch with him and stick to the plan. The protagonist and his companions were approaching the nest of a red fire spider. There were several ravenous red fire spider cubs crawling on the ground. Fan walked up to one of the spiders and crushed it with all his might with his foot. Fan was crushing spiders with his feet and said it was a good stress reliever. His friends were crushing spiders next to him. The princess activated the spell. She said that they should kill as many spider eggs as possible. This would help to provoke the boss. Fang chopped the eggs with his sword. He asked, would destroying them help with this, and could Bai Qi do it all by himself? A huge predatory boss appeared from the side. He was heading towards the people. One of the warriors shouted that Bai Qi was right. The fighters began to flee fearfully from the spider boss. The plan was for them to use the items when they got near the mercenary camp. The spider walked over and looked around angrily. He saw the destroyed eggs. The boss angrily yelled that his children were dead. The protagonist asked the spider how he felt when he saw the eggs destroyed. Bai told the monster that the princess and the rest of the warriors had successfully completed the first step of the plan. The main character got into a fighting stance. He said that now it was his turn. The spider was viciously surprised when it saw the humans in front of it. It attacked the protagonist. The boss angrily told the guy that he couldn't ask anything else from him but death. Bai looked angrily at the spider and said he hadn't told him anything. The protagonist shouted to the monster that he should overpower it anyway. The spider was surprised because of the man's great speed and confidence. A girl in a spider web was hanging from a tree. She told the protagonist that he was an unusual man. The evil stranger suggested to the guy that he stay with her. They could have many children together. The main character angrily shouted to the girl that he was very good to be her food. The guy tapped the demonic stranger with all his might, and there was a massive explosion. The spider angrily told the protagonist that he was suggesting to him how he could die. He attacked the man with green lightning bolts. Bai ran very fast through the forest. He realized that the boss's hate scale was full. The man was rushing through the dark forest with all speed. His goal was not to fight the boss. The protagonist thought he needed to lure the boss out of his territory. A guy was walking through the woods. There was a huge spider high up in a tree. Bai stopped. He noticed that there was a huge spider's web hanging above him. A large web fell to the ground. Bai thought that, in the original game, bosses had a strong sense of attachment. They never left their territory. The spider angrily asked the man why he was just running away. The player thought he had brought the monster to the edge of his territory. The spider angrily said he wasn't interested in cowardly males at all. Bai decided to seduce the female boss. The protagonist cheerfully told the spider woman that there were 30 men near the camp who were bigger than he was. The spider lady was very surprised when she heard about the 30 strong males. Boss rushed after the guy. She demanded that he take her immediately to the camp where the 30 males were. Bai thought on the fly that he could do things now that were not available to him before. He decided to get his hands on a new account, and he knew how to do it. A huge herd of red fire spiders ran after the humans. The players tried to escape. The fighters ran with all their might. The princess shouted that they should get closer to the camp. Then they would use the objects to divide the crowd of spiders into 4 parts. Mina said that we need to surround the mercenary camp from 4 sides so that they have nowhere to run to. It's a dangerous thing to do, but with the help of Bai Chi it can be done. The girl told her companions that they should work together and not waste items. The princess and her warriors ran into the mercenary camp. She shouted to them to disperse. The mercenaries stood looking at the bodies of the 2 slain warriors. They couldn't figure out who could have attacked them. Someone suggested that it could have been a wild animal. The boss looked at the soldier's body and said that someone had stabbed them in the neck with a sharp dagger. The mercenary said that the princess and her minions could have survived. Hades said thoughtfully, "There was no one like that in the princess's group with that weapon class and skills." A fighter ran up and said in a frightened voice for the boss that the monsters had invaded their camp. The wounded warrior said he was patrolling the outskirts of the camp, and he was able to get out. He reported an onslaught of spider monsters from all sides of the camp. He even thought he saw a woman. Hades asked fearfully to his subordinate, what did the subordinate say? He couldn't believe that the princess had really escaped. The mercenaries in the camp tried to escape. There were many predatory spiders around them and no way out. A huge spider attacked one frightened man before he could escape. The predatory spider latched onto the man from behind and began to devour him at once. The mercenaries tried fighting off the spiders. Yuri said angrily that he didn't know why the boss still hadn't returned. Hades came running up from the side. Some of the fighters shouted that they were finally saved. Yuri asked the boss to lead them in the fight against the cursed spiders. There were other fighters standing nearby. The commander told his subordinates to grab the money and run away. The warrior asked his boss fearfully, then, what would happen to the other mercenaries? Hades explained to his subordinates that mercenaries should hold the sword as long as they are paid. As long as there is money, there will be plenty of mercenaries. The boss, along with his subordinates, ran at full speed towards the money wagon. Suddenly, the money truck crumbled and coins spilled out. The spider looked angrily at the people. The boss shouted fearfully that his own gold was in front of him. The surprised fighter stood nearby. The spider woman said joyfully that she had many strong men in front of her. She will be able to lay many eggs. The predator began to wrap her web around the men. She shouted that the men would be her food. The spider attacked the humans with green acid. They started running away screaming. The predator shouted to the boss that she had heard about him from the boy. She asked angrily, why was he running away? Hades was trying to escape. The boss couldn't understand why some boy was behind all of this. Hades figured that if the princess knew such a powerful man, she wouldn't turn to them for help. At which time someone came from the side and grabbed the boss's leg with his hand. Yuri was very weak and helpless. He asked his boss not to leave him. The boss silently lifted his subordinate by the arm. Yuri thanked him for his help. Hades swung sharply and threw one of the mercenaries straight down to the spider. The spider lunged angrily at the man. The boss realized that he couldn't fight without knowing what Guy was up to. So he decided to run away. The boss saw a crowd of people in front of him. he decided to escape alone. The fighters started shouting that they are saved if their commander is around. The boss was running through the forest. He realized that his team had been destroyed. He had the necklace left, and so he had a chance to start over. The commander noticed the silhouette of a girl nearby in the woods. He recognized it immediately. Hades realized he was looking at the princess. She had survived. He decided not to give her a chance this time. The fighter angrily lunged alone at the girl and tried to chop her with his sword. The image of the princess disappeared. Hades saw a small device on Earth. He realized it was deep space technology. The boss couldn't understand where the princess could have gotten such an item. The main character showed up at the side with a knife. He told the boss that everything here is stronger than he thinks. The boss started waving his blade in all directions. He didn't realize who was behind him. Hades said very angrily to himself that all of this happened because of the necklace. The boss turned to the protagonist and said that he was wrong to attack him in the open. Hades ran towards the boy. He asked angrily, had he decided to defeat him in a one-on-one fight? The protagonist bounced high up. The opponent released fire lightning from his hand and brought down a tree. Hades was surprised at the guy's great speed. He couldn't believe that Bai was only level 10. The protagonist angrily told his rival that the whole plan was designed to get them one-on-one. He suggested to the boss to see who would be the stronger of the two. Hades told the protagonist that he could hit him right back. Bai replied to his opponent that if he tried to stab him in the back, he would be stunned and at a disadvantage. The boss's hands glowed brightly. He told the protagonist that he was low level and knew a lot. Hades rushed at the boy with burning hands. He shouted that he would die a horrible death. Bai ran off to the side. The boss shouted to him that he wanted to compensate for the regret he was feeling. The protagonist jumped aside. The boss shouted to him that it was useless to hide from him. Hades shattered a large rock with his shot. He shouted to the protagonist that this duel was doomed from the moment he appeared. Bai stood looking at his opponent. He thought about what was important right now in this battle. The protagonist realized that the most important thing was skills. He rushed to the side. Hades angrily told his opponent that he was still able to repel his attacks, but combat experience was meaningless in a situation where there was a big difference in levels. The boss hightailed it to the ground. He said for the protagonist that he had some skills, but they were quickly running out. The boss rushed forward. He said for the protagonist angrily that he would kill first him and then his woman. Hades launched a fire sword at his opponent and shouted that he was about to die. The clothes on the main character's body got damaged. He told his boss he was underestimating him. The protagonist looked angrily at his opponent and said that he had a method to finish him off. Hades asked with interest to his rival, how did the latter decide to try and get rid of him? Bai replied to the boss that he would use items against him. He pulled out a stone called Lord of Power. Bai decided to use a level 50 skill against the boss. He was able to summon shadow demons from the realm of shadows to aid in the battle. Hades lunged at the guy. He said that after he killed him, all his things would belong to him. The protagonist jumped up and fought off the boss's attack with his hand. Bai used his martial skills to throw the boss away from him with a powerful punch. Bai was very frightened. He couldn't understand what trick his opponent was using against him. The boss was running away to the side. He felt the oppressive feeling of a level 50 skill. Hades flew up into the air. He didn't realize where the guy got an item of such a high level. Purple tentacles of monsters followed him. The boss turned back frightened. He saw that the tentacles were about to grab him. Demonic hands grabbed the boss and knocked him to the ground with all his might. Bai asked angrily to the boss, why does the boss run away from him? Hades asked with consternation to the protagonist, why didn't he use such a powerful item from the beginning? Hades asked with consternation to the protagonist, why does the protagonist do this to him? There were small purple monsters flying around Bai. He angrily told his rival that he had chosen the wrong path. Hades held out a necklace for the protagonist. He asked him to spare it. Bai pounded his sword into the ground with all his might. He shouted to his opponent that he wanted to take the necklace and his life. A bright red pentagram lit up on the ground. The boss cried out in fright. Hades asked the protagonist in a dying voice, why doesn't he kill him? Bai put his hand on the boss's head. He said he kept it because of a deal he made with someone. The system informed the boss that the quest was complete. The system informed the player that he had received 8,000 soul points. He also had his account unlocked. Bai threw a necklace for the girl. He said he had kept his end of the bargain, and now it was her turn. The protagonist told the princess to question the boss as soon as possible. Mina walked over to the lying boss and asked, what is he really doing here? The boss angrily told the girl that he wished he had killed her sooner. The main character knew that the boss didn't kill the princess just because he didn't believe in her destiny. Fan came from the side and swung his sword. He decided to kill the boss right away. Fang swung his sword with all his might and hit the ground. Ada was dragged aside by a spider web. A huge spider grabbed the man and screamed that he belonged to her. Hades angrily shouted to Fan that he had no chance of killing him. He suggested that we all die together. The spider lady yelled very angrily to the guy that she had finally found him. The spider woman angrily told the guy that the camp she had fallen into was completely deserted. He was now alone. Bai told his friends to stay behind. He himself promised to take care of the boss. The friends angrily told the protagonist that they wouldn't let him fight alone. They promised to help him. The spider woman angrily told the people in front of her that she had decided to take them all. At that time there was a very strong roar in the sky. The people and the spider were frightened. The spider woman looked up. She asked angrily who dared to roar over her head. A huge dragon appeared in the sky. He reached out his paw and grabbed the spider. The main character was surprised to see the monster in front of him. He thought there was no such thing. A huge dragon named Blake landed on the ground. People could not understand why the ancient dragon had taken up residence here. The monster jumped to his feet. He clutched the spider woman with his huge paw. People didn't understand why a huge ancient dragon had appeared here. Dagu shouted fearfully that he couldn't move. Bai put his hand up. He told his friends not to make any sudden movements. To himself, he thought to himself that he needed to fix this scenario. The spider woman angrily demanded of the dragon that he let her go immediately. Blake let the predator go from his grasp. The spider told him angrily that he was scared of her after all. The dragon abruptly grabbed the spider web with its jaws and began chewing it with all its might. Blake squeezed jaws with all his might and the remnants of the red spider scattered around. Bai looked seriously in front of him. He thought that thanks to the widow, he was able to calm down and recall the information about this in the black dragon. The boy looked at the monster. He decided his name should be Dragon Guardian Dickon Blake. Blake was one of the 3 dragons that guarded the soul of the world after the world was destroyed. Dickon was last seen in the first battle of the falling stars. After that, he disappeared. The main character decided that if he met the monster now, he would surely die. The guy warned his friends that the dragon would breathe fire and they could die. The main character yelled to the dragon not to kill them. He explained that humans were not his enemy. Blake looked with an angry yellow gaze at the people. He understood the main character's words. The dragon turned aside. Small flames flew around him. The people were very amazed. The princess realized that Bai had just spoken in the dragon language. Blake told the man that in all of history no more than 10 people had ever spoken the dragon tongue. Bai answered him that he knew his noble and secret name. The main character used a skill book called The Dragon's Secret. The protagonist bent down on his knee and called the dragon's name in full. He greeted it respectfully. The dragon angrily asked the man, how on earth did the man know his name? He threatened that he would not believe a word the men said. The main character saw a wound on the monster's body. He decided that the wound made Blake very angry and agitated. The monster angrily demanded of the man that he speak or die. Bai asked the monster not to be angry. The protagonist told the dragon that he served the last descendant of the Starlight clan. He pointed his finger at the Princess Minu. The girl realized that she had to completely stick to the main character's story. Bai told the dragon that he had to protect the girl. Blake shouted angrily that he protects the soul of the world that keeps the world in balance. He is not a human bodyguard. The dragon pounded the ground with all his might with his paw. Cracks appeared all around. He said angrily that the protagonist had found some man and claimed that he was the last member of the royal bloodline. Blake yelled that he had lost patience but was giving the protagonist one last chance. He demanded that the guy prove it or die. The protagonist pulled a necklace out of his pocket and showed it for the dragon. Bai held the jewelry in his hands and said that only members of the royal family were worthy of possessing this necklace. The protagonist wanted to explain to the monster what this proves is that the dragon started attacking people with fire. Bai abruptly rushed to the side and grabbed the princess in his arms to save her. Blake attacked the people in front of him with a huge jet of fire. The dragon said angrily that a mere mortal had touched the greatness of the star core. Such a person deserved to die. The protagonist told the dragon that he had lost his guardian dignity and had fallen into darkness. He thought to himself that he had saved his life, but wasted 2 deep space items. The dragon angrily told the man that he wouldn't be able to withstand his fire breath twice. Bai couldn't figure out what his way out of this impasse might be. If he unlocked 25% of his inventory, There were few items there to deal with the ancient dragon. Bai told Mina that there was only one way out of this situation, but the solution would bring her pain and suffering. Mina told him that she was willing to endure any pain. The protagonist wrapped his arms around the girl. He thought that this was the only way they could survive. Fan looked fearfully at his friend and called out to him. Bai shouted to him to just watch. The protagonist shouted to the fighter not to let anyone find out about it. The protagonist swung his blade and pointed it towards the girl. Bai lightly stabbed his sword into the princess's chest. He used the most precise techniques to reduce her pain. The guy carefully used his blade to touch the princess's heart. The protagonist carefully drew his blade. Mine lay unconscious in front of him. Bai carefully dripped a few drops of blood from his blade onto the magic amulet. The dragon angrily shouted to the man that it was time for him to die. He breathed fire on him. Blake continued to attack the people in front of him with a powerful jet of fire. The protagonist turned into a huge warrior with golden armor. He fought off a jet of fire. The dragon glanced up and saw the man's powerful aura in front of him with surprise. He would never forget. Blake said he sees before him the first king of the land of starlight named Minatilis. The dragon told the angry warrior that he had died hundreds of years ago and asked why he had come back to life. Blake couldn't believe that the illusion in front of him could have been an illusion. The main character was holding the princess in his arms. He told the monster that he could check for himself how unreal the illusion was. The monster angrily shouted to the humans that it didn't matter how many times they fought. Blake threatened the people in a very angry voice that he wouldn't leave dust on them. He blew fire on them. A powerful fire stream flew forward and began to tear down everything in front of it. Blake knew that his last fire strike had melted even the hardest steel. The dragon told the man that he should not have used the vision of Minatilis to provoke him. The protagonist angrily shouted at the surprised dragon to open his eyes wide to stay awake. A huge warrior stood in front of the dragon. He shouted to the monster to take a good look. The monster was startled to realize that he was seeing a real warrior in golden armor in front of him. The monster frightenedly remembered that he had seen the death of Minatilis with his own eyes. Blake marveled because of the fact that such power was hidden in the core of the star. Blake looked away in surprise. He didn't realize that such a thing was possible. The dragon shielded himself with his wing from the sword strike. He glanced to the side and thought that the princess was indeed a descendant of Minatilis. Blake flew upward. He shouted angrily to the warrior that he would kill his descendants. People were surprised because the fighter was using the deflect skill. With this skill, it was possible to deflect an attack and make the opponent freeze for a short period of time. Fang couldn't understand how such a huge body could use the deflection skill. The other fighters were also surprised. Bai thought to himself that this battle needed to be over before it all manifested. The dragon was very angry. He didn't understand why this man had appeared in front of him again. Blake looked at the warrior across from him. He met him after hundreds of years. The dragon felt a reminder of a forgotten battle when he first met the warrior. The warrior told the dragon that he was the king of men. He asked that the monster be his companion in guarding the world. Blake angrily told the man that he spoke to him arrogantly. The dragon told the man he was about to die. The warrior swung his sword at him. The dragon told the man that he was willing to die but would never obey human orders. The warrior swung his sword. He shouted to the dragon that he would make it endure unbearable agony. The man held a sword over the monster's head. He told the dragon that he was giving him one last chance at life. The warrior told the dragon that he could fight him again in the future. Now he asked the monster for help. Blake thought that if he didn't defeat the man now, time would kill the warrior very soon. He decided to wait. The dragon knew that Minatilis had died in the first battle for Starlight. Blake wished he'd killed the warrior himself. The monster couldn't understand why, after hundreds of years, he couldn't get rid of the warrior's shadow. The man attacked the dragon with a powerful strike with a huge golden sword. After a powerful blow from the warrior, a large chasm appeared on the ground. The dragon stood in front of the man. The dragon looked at the warrior and realized that he respected this great man. The monster angrily asked the man why the man kept reminding him of his own weakness and wouldn't let him go even after death. Blake spit out some kind of object from his mouth. He shouted that he would never obey anyone again. A huge chest fell out of the dragon and onto the ground. The monster said that no one else could hold it back. The monster flew upwards. He said no one could enslave him and he was free. The people happily ran up to the protagonist. Gray asked the guy why he didn't kill the dragon with the last blow. The protagonist looked after the flying monster. He said that scaring the dragon away was the best solution for him. But I thought to himself that the current level of the princess of the first king wouldn't be able to suppress the black dragon. The system reported that the players had obtained 40,000 soul points. The system reported that players received an ancient treasure chest with dragon saliva. Dagu said he wasn't exactly happy that he had gotten 2 levels in a row. Gray told his companion that when he saw something more powerful than he thought, it made him feel very small. Fang leaned over the princess. He asked the protagonist what was going on, but explained that the girl would not wake up for at least 10 days due to mental stress. The protagonist bent over the princess's body. He said that the blood of the royal family would be required to activate the star core. Bai told his friends that he did it this time to survive and he was sorry. One of the warriors told the protagonist that he did it to save them. They will remember for the rest of their lives that they survived the fight with the black dragon. The princess caused it all herself. Bai told his friends that they needed to leave the place. There was still a chest behind him. The protagonist told his companions that they couldn't leave this chest here. One of the protagonist's friends said that the chest looks like it would be high-end. There must be something valuable inside. The main character told his friends that there might be a trap in the treasure chest. Bai thought to himself, the chest had never appeared in the original game. He didn't know what was inside it. Gray advised the protagonist not to be impulsive. The suitcase could be a trap. Bai put his foot on the crate. Dagu warned his friend that the chest could be a mimic. The protagonist knew that mimics were a special kind of slime monster. Such a demon lived in chests and devoured the people who opened them. The protagonist remembered that he had never seen such a chest before. Gray told the protagonist in a frightened voice to open the box when he counted to 3. The protagonist opened the top lid of the box with a mighty kick of his foot. The fighters were surprised to see gold coins flying from the chest. The system has informed the people that they have received the coins of the first king Minatilis. They are very valuable. The players received the key to the exile dungeon. They were able to open the door to the hidden dungeon. People using the coordinates in the exile dungeon will be able to find the location of the dungeon. The system informed people that they had received a summoning bell. If you put some character on this bell, you can summon their spirit. The character will fight for the host when the bell rings. Gray looked at the coin carefully. He said it could be exchanged for 50 ordinary coins. The Dagu was happily rummaging through the gold and shouting that he wanted these coins to drown him. The main character told the fan that he could take the coins for himself. He wanted to take the rest of the items for himself. The fan replied to his friend that he could take a larger share for himself. The protagonist explained to the companion that he is putting his share into the fan to rebuild the kingdom. He wants to get even more when they rebuild the kingdom together. The warrior tells the protagonist that he is a visionary and honest businessman. He accepts an investment from him on behalf of the princess. If mine was conscious, she would definitely agree to it gladly. Bai cheerfully told his friend that he thought so too. The warrior asked the protagonist, will he go along with them? Bai explained to his friends that they would stick to the original plan. The protagonist reminded his friends that they wanted to hire a group of mercenaries and then seek refuge with Baron Robbie. The protagonist remembered that Baron Robbie was a famous nobleman of the Principality of Ellen. His family prospered thanks to the favor of the royal family of Staran. From him, they would be able to get a good and inconspicuous hiding place. Bai told his friends that he was going to the Anka village and he would not go with them. Gray asked his friend with surprise, why would one go to such an insignificant village? The fan replied to the warrior, the protagonist must have his own plans. They need not ask more. Fan carried the princess on his back. He told the protagonist that he could find them at Baron Robbie's. Fan said goodbye to the main character and said that he is waiting to meet again. Dagu also said goodbye to Bai. The protagonist waved to his friend. He told him to say goodbye to the princess instead when she woke up. The protagonist went on a journey. The system informed him that his reputation with the Princess Mina faction had increased significantly. Bright lava flowed sharply in the ground. From it, a heavy smoke was rising outward. Suddenly, monster arms began to emerge from the ground. Lava raged all around. A huge fire-breathing demon appeared next to the monster's hands. It came out of the ground. The first chapter of the regional game included 3 maps. When all 3 maps reached full progress, the village chief would give the final quest reward. Now the order of progress is quite different. Throne of Souls was an open-world game. The protagonist could skip quests and progress the initial village, but he could not tolerate unlit maps and incomplete quest progress. Ever since the protagonist was reborn in this world, he has not had time to reflect and plan his future. The village of Anka is the perfect place for this. Anka village is relatively safe and harmonious. The people there are positive and optimistic. Village Chief Anka runs the village and guides the newcomers. He can be trusted. The protagonist looked up in the sky and saw the blood moon. He realized something was wrong. Bai looked around carefully. He noticed that the surroundings were quiet, and there was no sound of insects or birds. The guy looked in front of him and noticed that the road to the village was completely destroyed. At this time, a very loud scream sounded from the side. The protagonist listened carefully. Bai turned to the side in surprise. He realized that something must have happened in the village. The protagonist ran ahead to the village. He decided to check what happened there. A blood moon rose over the forest. In the cave, people gathered to perform a magical ritual on the prisoner. The boy was tied on a wooden altar. The priest asked him why he had run away and left his parents. He demanded that the captive accept the ascension. A huge bonfire was burning nearby. The stranger was very frightened. He was tied on the altar and could not scream. The priest pointed his finger in the direction and said that the time had come and they could begin. A man in a hoodie came up to him from the side and wanted to pour something out of a wooden bucket. A guy in a bucket got a big purple lizard in the water on his stomach. The lizard shrieked angrily. It looked at the man with a predatory gaze. The guy was really scared. He watched as the lizard prepared to slam into his body. After that, the predator sharply bit the captive's stomach. The guy screamed loudly. The guy felt a great pain in his body. His veins tensed and his eyes rolled back. At that time, someone launched a blade from the side and it hit a predatory lizard near the body of the prisoner. Knife after flight pierced the predatory lizard and it hissed viciously. The men in the hooded robes turned to the side. They didn't realize who was next to them. The protagonist approached with his knife. He asked the Kafar Anki what had happened. The stranger looked at the slain lizard. He shouted that the sacred insect had been killed. The man cried out fearfully that the supreme crystallization of the mother star had been destroyed. It was his sin. Bai thought that there was no mention of the name of the sacred star mother of insects in the game. But there were such creatures. They had never appeared in the initial village. The priest shouted to his subordinates that they should kill the guy. Men with blades rushed at the protagonist. Bai dodged to the side. One of the fighters flew past him with blades. The protagonist swung around and knocked his attackers back with powerful blows. The main character saw a tattoo on one of the men. The drawing pointed to it. Bai remembered that the old lair had to be far from here. Since it had appeared here, it meant that there was a reviver in the village. The fighter took out a huge insect. He angrily told the protagonist about the powerful blow from the sacred star of the insect's mother. The priest stood in front of the protagonist and sent great waves at him. He shouted that his imagination and understanding was happening. The murdered men on Earth began to come to life. They screamed menacingly and angrily. From behind one of the men, huge tentacles like an insect began to emerge. Bai thought that this familiar transformation was due to a deep space parasite. The mutants jumped to their feet. They looked angrily at the guy. One of them shouted that this form of human ascension was very beautiful and powerful. The man held out the insect in his hand and shouted to the protagonist that he had stopped a glorious ritual and must die. One of the mutants attacked a human with a powdered neutrotoxin. The protagonist put his cloak in front of him to protect himself from the attack. He knew that if he inhaled the neurotoxin, there would be hallucinations and deterioration of body and mind. Bai glanced back at one of the monsters. It wanted to attack him with its tentacle from behind. The mutant angrily demanded that the man stop resisting. The more the guy fights, the more he'll suffer. The monster ripped the cloak on the protagonist's back with its tentacles. Bai jumped high up. He held his blades in his hands and asked the mutants, "Who is their leader?" The monsters hissed very menacingly and reached out with their hands toward the man. The main character jumped up and jumped over one of the mutants. He asked the monster if he wanted to talk. The man was frightened. He told the protagonist that he had killed 2 ascended men with one blow. Bai explained to his companion that he was giving him one last chance. He asked who had compelled all of them to ascend. The man angrily told the lad that he would tell him nothing. He promised that the Bai would die for provoking their village. Bai stabbed the stranger in the head with his blade. He yelled for him to delete his account and start over. The system reported that Bai was rewarded with 180 points and a mutated insect. This insect made a very unpleasant sound. This sound irritates the parasites that live in the human body, and they come out. Bai looked sideways at the mutant's body. He wondered what purpose the Kafar Anki might have. The deep space parasite comes from an unknown larva. It was brought back by ships from space. After they crashed, the larva escaped and fused with various species of the world. The result was an uncontrollable genetic catastrophe. The same larva can be consumed by plants and insects. The larva can cause the death of the host. Ordered symbiosis and mutated symbiosis are also possible. The insect, once parasitized, retains the host, also develops an irresistible collective intelligence and obedience. This is the method of survival and propagation, as long as there is one cult that worships proliferation. In the original game, aside from the reviver being the cause of the change, the protagonist could find no other logical explanation. The main character remembered a boy named Dinah, who was going to be sacrificed. The original initial village had an NPS that followed him. The boy admired the player. Dina practiced sword fighting. He wanted to be as amazing as the main character. Dina brought some wild boars to the boy. He killed them himself. The main character couldn't understand what had happened to the boy. Bai asked the boy who was behind all this. The companion told him that the village chief was to blame. He had become a crazy monster and made everyone in the village crazy. The boy wrapped his arms around his head. He reported that he was able to escape with great difficulty to call for help. The guy ran to the side to save someone. The protagonist used a marking rune against him. This rune could mark the location of the target. As a result, the target would not disappear from the host's sight. Bai realized that the kind and friendly headman had decided to destroy the village he had lived in all his life. He decided to investigate it all to find the real ringleader. The system told the host that he must solve the problem in Cafe Anka, clean it up, and restore peace. The protagonist entered the village and saw that it was completely devastated. The situation in Kefar Ankh was worse than he expected. The boy remembered when the village was full of people. This place left him with a rare feeling of warmth. The protagonist looked over and saw that the village was devastated and bodies were lying around. The protagonist stepped forward. He decided that he would not let this place fall into darkness. The boy came up and banged on the lock with his sword. He couldn't break it. Dina continued to bang angrily on the chain. He didn't understand why on earth he couldn't break the lock. The guy held his sword in his hands frustratedly. He couldn't break the lock and he wouldn't be able to save all the prisoners. The girl in the dungeon told the guy to forget about them. She told him to run away and never come back. Dina didn't want to leave. Dina held his sword in his hands and shouted to the prisoners that he couldn't leave them. He promised to save them all. The guy swung his sword and shouted that he might even sacrifice himself. The protagonist appeared from the side. He reached out and grabbed the blade. The girl looked through the bars of the dungeon in surprise. Bai explained to the boy that the castle was enchanted with magic. It was useless to just break it. Dina told the protagonist fearfully that he should get out of the village as soon as possible. No one has ever gotten out of here alive. Bai thought that the Principality of Aelin knew everything that was going on here. That meant that the situation was not simple at all. Aloud, he said that he had nothing to do with the Principality of Aelin. He was just an ordinary passerby who had returned to his native place. Bai asked the guy, "Where is the gathering place for the mutated humanoid insects?" Dina said that the mutants were gathering somewhere under the village, but he didn't know the exact location. The main character told the people that if he let him go, they wouldn't be able to survive much longer. The prisoners asked him to save them. The main character told the surprised guy that he could use him as bait to lure the mutants out. The woman in the cell shouted fearfully that everyone who was taken away never came back. "This place is very dangerous." The mother shouted, "Allow the protagonist to run away with his son." Dina told the protagonist in the right voice that he would do anything and believe in his words. The main character was holding a huge blade. He told the guy to follow his instructions. Dina fearfully held the sword in his hands. He told the protagonist that he would do everything according to him. A priest walked into the room. Diarra angrily asked the guy, "Where are the men he sent for him?" Diarra asked grudgingly of the lad, "Why didn't he ascend and reject the goodwill of the head of the village?" Dina shouted that he didn't care about the goodwill of the village head. The priest at this time held his hand over his head. He said angrily that a soul will never ascend if it is bound to a weak body. It was the village head who gave them a new life. The priest pressed the boy with all his might. He shouted that he had been disobedient and stubborn since he was a child. The woman in the cell angrily shouted for Diarra to let her son go. The boy shouted in a weakening voice, to have not his father by his side, but the demon and the monster. Diarra told his subordinates to take the boy to the altar. He promised to personally perform the ascension ritual. The priest turned to the side and said that very soon their family would be reunited again and be together forever. The woman fearfully called out to her son. The mutants led the boy with them. They came to the entrance of a stone building. The priest on the move asked his subordinates what happened to the 3 people he sent. The man told him that they had already sent more people to search for the missing people. Daire told the guy that he has been a constant disappointment since birth. After he accepts the ascension, then he will evolve and become a good son he recognizes. The boy was lying on the altar and there were candles all around. He told the father that he was very bad because of alcoholism and domestic violence. Daire replied to the son, "That is why they need to ascend. It will help them become better organisms." The protagonist lay motionless on the altar and looked fearfully at the priest. Daire said that 3 of his men were killed and with them the holy insect. The man threw his hands up in the air in frustration. He angrily asked his son why he continued to disappoint him. Daire looked angrily at his son and demanded that he tell him who had done it. The boy shouted fearfully that he did not know. The father sternly told his son that he continued to go against his wishes. He did not understand why he was lying to him. The boy angrily shouted to father that let the village head do it instead. A voice came from the side. He said that the village head could come in. Daire looked up in front of him. Dina stared in amazement in front of him. He couldn't believe he could do it. The boy looked at the door on the side. He decided that behind it was the source of all suffering. A guy was lying on earth. An old man came up to him and asked him if he knew why he had chosen him. The head of the village told the boy that he was full of energy and different from the others. Dina is worthy to inherit all his intentions. The old man told the guy that he could still do it and didn't understand everything. He decided to reveal something to the guy before the ritual. The head of the village reminded Dina of the epidemic that had happened 2 years ago. Half of the villagers had died then. The old man realized how fragile people were. The old man was helpless and could do nothing. He only cried and regretted. There was one who brought light back to the village. He healed the people and brought hope. It was the larva of the sacred star womb. Under the leadership of the chapter, the larva grew and gave everyone a chance at ascension. Anka Willa, because of his old body, could not bring in the sacred womb. So he hands over the responsibility to a young guy. Dina angrily shouted at the old man that he didn't want to become a disgusting monster like him. The old man told the guy it wasn't a human form. It's just an appearance. He released a large insect on the floor. Ankaville told the boy that when he accepts ascension, he will be able to tap into the collective consciousness and feel pleasure and responsibility. He leaves the future of the village to him. Dina looked fearfully at the insect. Dina angrily shouted to the old man that he was refusing his offer. The guy picked up a rock to nail the insect. The old man angrily told the guy that he had killed the only sacred royal uterus. The boy ran for the exit. He shouted to the old man that no one would want to inherit his evil and twisted will. Anka rushed after the guy. He yelled that he couldn't open the door. The guy ran up to the door and slammed it shut. He said that no one could come in here now. Dina looked at the old man and said it was his turn now. Anka angrily told the guy he should have killed him from the start. Dina covered his face with his hands. At this time, a yellow lightning bolt appeared in front of the old man. He did not understand what was happening. Dina asked the protagonist who he was. Bai told him that he would bring real hope to the village of Anka. Anka rushed forward at the protagonist. He shouted that he had come to destroy their world. There was a huge explosion after the old man hit the ground. Bai managed to bounce to the side. Anka said in a disgruntled voice that he was doing everything for the future of the village. He didn't understand why he was being hindered. Dina shouted to the old man that he wanted all the villagers to turn into monsters. Anka angrily said that his choice was the only right future for the entire village. At the side jumped the protagonist. The old man told the guy he'd make sure he had no place to run to. Anka began spraying his poisonous violet gas into the room. The protagonist knew that the poison gas from the old man would still paralyze and kill. Anka demanded angrily of the boy that he not resist and lie on the earth. The old man threatened the guy that he would open up his stomach and use it as an incubator for his sacred uterus. The old man angrily wanted to pound the protagonist. He didn't understand why the guy was still moving. Bai answered him that his gas was lethal. The protagonist used his special protective mask for protection. Dina, after putting on the mask, immediately felt relief and his pain disappeared. The old man didn't understand why the protagonist could still move. The protagonist frightenedly thought that the headman had finally lost his mind. The protagonist recalled an incident when the headman, along with the villagers, saw a stranger at the gate of the village. Anka told the stranger to give his portion of food. The old man turned around and told the protagonist happily that he had brought a lot of meat to the village. He wasn't wrong to decide to help him. Anka sat next to the Bai. He told the lad that their ancestors had defended the village for centuries, but he was already very weak to carry that time. He suggested that the boy stay in the village and defend it. Anka waved his hand at the guy. He told him in parting that a real man should strive for great things. He asked that the protagonist should remember this small place. Bai dodged the old man's attack. He decided to see him off. The old man shouted angrily that he couldn't die now. If he died, no one would protect the village. The village chief dropped dead to the ground. He was still repeating to himself that he couldn't. The protagonist told the old man that it was time for him to rest. Anka crawled over and touched the boy's leg with his hand. He said that he did not understand him. The old man's forehead glowed very brightly. The lightning went to the main character's head. The main character saw a memory of being in the village with an old man. The revivalist told the head of the village that he had nothing to fear. Half of the locals had died of the plague. The priest said that the holy insect could change the fate of all. Anka lay on the altar. He didn't believe what the reborn said, but it was the only way for him. The old man shouted angrily that he felt intense pain. The reviver told him that the first stages of ascension brings unbearable pain. After Anka endures everything, then he will feel happiness and strength. The protagonist realized that his consciousness had connected with the headman for a moment. He didn't understand what the revivalist's true purpose was. Anka explained to the boy that he knew nothing. The old man told the guy that all destinies have a past. But unfortunately, the world has already changed completely. Anka told the boy that he could no longer change the future of the village. The old man took out a purple crystal. He asked that the protagonist be able to protect the village. Anka fell to the ground and dropped the crystal at the protagonist's feet. His life was over. The system reported that the owner was rewarded with an old rusty key and could open the secret door. The protagonist also got himself the holy insect crystal. Bai looked at the purple stone. He thought that he couldn't fulfill the old man's request yet. He could ensure the safety of the civilians, and the mutants would be completely wiped out. The protagonist felt a sense of consciousness reconnecting. The boy looked fearfully in front of him. He saw that a cave under the ground had appeared in front of him. Bai couldn't understand how a huge underground cave had appeared in a deserted village. The guy saw a huge crystal. He thought it was a fragment of the soul of the world. There was a reviver standing nearby. The priest turned around and said that the old man was dead. He invited the protagonist to follow him. Bai looked at the revivalist very worriedly. He didn't know what to do now. The protagonist took off his mask. He realized that his unconscious vision had not shown him the exact location of the reviver and the fragment. The man angrily told the villagers that the village headman had been killed. They need to ring the bells and gather everyone. They also need to destroy the culprit. A very angry ringing sound echoed around the village at night. The call went far beyond the village. The stranger said that someone had arrived at Anka village before them. The nun said they must all follow the orders of the church. She ordered her subordinates to completely destroy the village and leave no survivors. The nuns in the Rose Combat Corps responded to the commander that they would. The nun approached and saw the mutants in front of her. One of the monsters said there were intruders in front of them. The mutants rushed at the nun. One of them shouted, "The humans must be killed and prevented from approaching the village." The nun said they were mutated insects. She realized why none of those sent by the church had ever returned. The women rushed forward as a group and began to fight against the monsters. One of the nuns drew her weapon and began firing toward the mutants. The other used a pentagram. The monster lunged at the woman and said that their strength was not the same as the previous intruders. The nun replied that he was attacking, not running. The woman tore the monster apart with a mighty blow of her sharp chains. She said that this place held secrets they didn't know about. The nun immediately realized that this was a village of great importance to the church. The woman became very curious about the secrets the village might be hiding. The protagonist standing in an abandoned castle. He recalled the events that had happened in the village. Bai remembered the reviver. The man knew the location of the shard and was able to use its power to enhance and manipulate the village. The guy decided that the shard could not be passed into the wrong hands. The soul shard of the world was one of the highest treasures. It contained great power. There were 8 other large shards that became the basis for 8 countries. The higher the purity of the stone, the higher its price. The volume of the shard under the village is enough to create a huge city-state. Although the players were using the game setting, they were in the real world. It was impossible to become king alone. Bai decided to get the shard for himself. Dina happily told his friend that the village chief was dead. Now everyone could be saved. Bai explained to his friend that the mutants could no longer return to normal. They must all be killed. The main character told the boy to kill his father. The boy was very upset. Dina remembered that his father had taught him that today's world was easier to endure if humanity was set aside. A voice came from the side. The man told the guy to open the door. It would be his only chance to survive. The father threatened the terrified boy that he would personally kill him and his mother. Dina told himself that he had been very foolish for having illusions about his father. The guy excitedly told the protagonist that he wanted to deliver the final blow to the man to end his life. Bai looked at the boy and realized that before he was just a programmed NPS in the game. Now Dina was a real human being, with flesh and blood. The door opened, and a man with an escort of warriors appeared. The woman shouted to her son that she told him to run away, but he did not listen to her. The man explained to the woman that the boy simply could not run away. The kid yelled at his father not to touch his mother. He angrily asked him what he wanted. A man told a guy and a woman that he could let them leave. The father demanded of the protagonist that he give him the key he had taken from the village chief. Bai realized that if the man knew about the key, he must also know how to use it. The main character got the key. He said he'd give it to the man, and he'd let the hostages go. The father reached forward and released his wife. The son ran up to his mother. Bai tossed the man the key. The man joyfully grabbed the key. He said with excitement that he would finally be able to meet the Holy Father and reach the highest exaltation. The man turned around and told people not to trust anyone so easily in the next life. The priest ordered the monsters to kill the humans. The mutants ran forward. The protagonist told the man that he could just as easily take the key back from him. The main character used agonizing piercing. He attacked all mutants with red large needles. The priest looked at the boy fearfully. He realized that he really was able to kill the elder for a reason. The man yelled to the monsters to stop the guy. They had numerical superiority. A revivalist ran up from the side. He shouted that their village had been attacked and all their people killed. The man was surprised. The revivalist screamed that they were attacked by the Rose Sisters. At the same time, he was hit in the head by a flying blade. The priest said fearfully that the Church of the Principality of Alina had indeed sent the Order of the Rose Sisters against them. Nuns appeared at the side. One of them said that the village commoners really knew their name. The captain of the Order of Sisters named Thorn Lily ordered her subordinates to leave no one alive. The woman looked in front of her and saw the man beside her. Leloy walked right up to the main character and said he was very unusual. The nun told the guy that the secret of this village had something to do directly with him. Bai didn't understand why these insufferable, crazy women had appeared here. He realized that getting hold of the soul shard of the world would be harder for him than he thought. The Nun Rose martial order was subordinate to the Scarlet Throne of the Principality of Elin. The martial order was made up of girls. After a strict selection process, they all had the right appearance. Each chosen girl must drink a specially prepared hallucinogenic poison and endure spiritual and physical torment. Only those girls who successfully cross the line between life and death survive. Candidates are considered officially accepted into the order and are subjected to brutal combat training. Bai knew that each nun was a very dangerous opponent. He could win in a one-on-one battle. But he had no chance of winning a 1 versus 5 battle. The rival angrily told the guy that he was very scared. She had a feeling he was very strong. The main character told the woman that he should thank her for arriving in time and killing all the mutants. Eventually, the village was saved. Leloy smiled and told the guy that she really liked what he was saying. But one thing the protagonist was wrong about. The woman said angrily that they had come here to destroy, not to save. Everything in the village should completely disappear from the face of the earth. The woman grabbed her son from behind to stop him. The boy yelled to the nun that they were innocent, and the mercenaries still want to kill them. The woman swung the bloody chain. She said they're just following church orders. They don't judge who's guilty and who's not. The protagonist shouted to the mercenary to stop. He fended off her attack with his blade. Leloy told the guy she wanted to kill him last, but now she seems to be first. The main character asked the nun why the church gave such an order. He knew that the church would not order the killing of innocent civilians. The nun laughingly said that the church is a secret organization and the main character is an outsider. A bright burning red flower appeared in his hands in front of the guy. It gave off a glow in all directions. The guy uttered a sacred saying. The woman was surprised to see the innermost sacred teaching in the guy's hands. The nuns rushed at the protagonist to kill him with their blades. The protagonist activated the bloody bloom. The nun shouted that the crest along with the teachings couldn't be a mistake. The women bowed. They didn't understand how a man could receive the highest shrine that even their captain didn't have. Bai got the blood rose after completing all the side quests. It was enough to impress the men of the order. Bai told the mercenary women that he would not pretend in front of them anymore, and would reveal his cards. He asked the woman if he could question the decisions of the church. Leloy replied to her companion that they would temporarily spare the civilians in the village who were not infected. The man decided to run away quickly to the side while the nun's attention was diverted away from him. He waited for him to get a power that could kill everyone. Leloy shouted that all mutants must die. She attacked the man with her blood chain. The priest fell to the ground in fright. The protagonist protected him from the attack with his fire lightning. Leloy angrily asked the guy, "So why does he even protect criminals? Does he really have it in for her?" A frightened man ran down the hallway. Bai explained that he was not protecting criminals, but he had reasons he could not give. The system told the host that the target was marked. The targeting would last 30 minutes. The mercenary told the guy that he had already seriously violated the law. The main character disappeared very quickly. The nun said the guy used the assassin's professional skill of invisibility. The mercenary asked Leloy, should she go after the guy and kill him? The commander replied that she should let the Bayou go a little first. She decided to see what he was up to. The woman decided the guy would commit a lot of sins. She'd kill him and bring his head to the church. Bai was rushing through a dark building. He decided to unlock his second game account. The protagonist commanded that he wanted to use one account unlock point. The protagonist was running and saw the game portal in front of him. He was heading towards it. The guy saw the age of civilization in front of him. It was a strategy game. The game account for the leader was an auxiliary account. It could be combined with the main account for general use. Bai thought to himself that, with the help of this player, he could turn a deserted village into a city-state. But for the current crisis, this is of no practical importance. The protagonist knew that the game only unlocked a quarter of the gameplay. There had to be abilities available to enhance his combat power. They had to be found as soon as possible. Bai glanced in front of him and realized that the man was standing still and the decisive fight was about to finally begin. A blood moon rose in the night village. A man ran into a cave. The priest ran to the reborn and told them that their village had been overrun by outsiders again. A man told his companion that he had been struggling with the key to enlightenment. He asked that he be granted the power to destroy all the invaders. The priest knelt down before the reborn and called him Holy Father. The reborn told the man that he had proven his loyalty to him by his actions. He now gives him a higher power to fulfill the promise. An insect began to climb inside the priest. He thanked his companion for his holy favor. The reborn told the man that the power would fill his body. The troublemakers in the village would soon meet the Holy Kara. The Holy Father ordered the Holy Demonic Executioner to kill everyone. In the center stood the warriors. Among them was the guardian of the temple. They were discussing before them the fact that the village headman had handed over the key to enlightenment to an unknown person. The warrior grabbed the blade. He said they had to kill the man and take the key. That way they could earn the right to stand before the Holy Father, at which time purple tentacles appeared from the side. The warrior was talking about full ascension. Huge purple tentacles reached out and tapped the warriors on their heads. The monster executioner appeared at the side. He told his victims that he used to suffer a lot at their hands, but now he is fully ascended and has an almost invulnerable body. No one can kill him anymore. The executioner looked angrily at the men and said that they would be food to enhance his power. The monster shouted angrily that he would first devour the remaining villagers. Then he would take revenge on the boy and the mercenaries. The main character appeared at the side. He told the mutant that he had come to him on his own. The monster shouted to the man that he had saved time for him. The mutant extended his tentacles toward the boy. He said that his opponent was only a level 10 boy. The mutant shouted to the man that he could easily handle him. Bai held a blade in his hands. The protagonist jumped up. He was able to free himself from the monster's tentacles. The executioner was very surprised. He didn't understand how he couldn't kill the guy. The monster activated Scarlet Flame. He couldn't understand why the guy was still on his feet. The executioner couldn't even kill a useless level 10 player with the power he received. Bai attacked his opponent with a powerful punch. He didn't want to finish him because he promised that monster would finish Dean. The executioner was very angry when he heard that Dina wanted him dead. He shouted, "I wish he'd never had a son." The protagonist stopped abruptly. He had a vision in front of his eyes. The man stood near the door. He told the boy to do better and not to have such a son. Bai remembered to himself that his father had left home when he was 5 years old. Only that phrase remained in his memory. The protagonist reassured himself that everything that had happened in his past life was no longer important to him. Bai told himself that he couldn't let the flaws and regrets from his past life be weaknesses in his new life. The protagonist stopped by a large gate. He tried to open it with his hands. The monster told the guy that he had already missed his best chance. He demanded that Bai stand still, or he would break the key. The main character stopped and looked from the side at the mutant. He shouted that the guy could have killed him and gotten the key. But instead, he chose to follow an obscure agreement, as the mercenary came from the side. She put her foot on the monster's head and took the key from him. The nun angrily asked the mutant what was behind the door. The executioner demanded that she let him go and remove her foot. The protagonist asked the woman, had the Great Order of the Rose Nun also taken an interest in the minor mystery of a forgotten place? The mercenary kicked the monster aside. She told the protagonist that she was really only interested in him. Bai told his interlocutor that he was very much flattered. To himself, he thought that the real consequence was not favor, but disaster. The mutant shouted angrily to the humans that they had no idea what they were going to face. He started to crawl away. The monster saw the boy in front of him. He demanded that the Din stand still and not move. The mutant demanded of the lad that he give him back the life and way he had given him. Dina replied to the companion that he was not his son and had no such father. The boy swung and struck the mutant with his sword. The monster shouted at the boy that he couldn't kill him. The executioner was startled to notice that his body had begun to melt. He thought he was immortal and thought it was impossible. Dean had his level raised. He angrily told the monster to go to hell and take the judgment and punishment he deserved. The mercenary patted the boy and said that at a young age, he was able to kill his father. The nun asked the boy, does he like the power he got for killing a loved one? Bai told the woman that she herself knows perfectly well the feeling after killing a loved one. The nun replied to the guy that she didn't know what he was talking about. The nun clutched her hands to her head and said she was very sick. The woman remembered herself as a child. She was lying on the ground, and another girl was sitting next to her in a cage. The stranger stood up and took the torch in her hand. She headed forward towards the exit. The girl stood holding a torch in her hands. A huge wooden house was burning in front of her. A subordinate ran up to the captain and asked what was wrong with her. The woman said she had images in her head, but she was fine now. The protagonist shouted at the boy to run away. Danny ran away and promised to repay the protagonist. The mercenary approached the guy and asked what was on the other side of the door. Bai told the woman that she could open the door herself and look. He added that the mercenary could also give the key to him and he would open the answer for her. The commander commanded her subordinate to open the door, but to be careful of traps. The nun replied that she had checked everything and there were no traps or hidden mechanisms. The woman carefully walked to the door and slowly inserted the key. She turned it sideways. The huge door opened and a purple mist poured out of the inside. The women stood frightened. The door swung inward and the mercenaries were sucked in. The nun put her hand out in front of her to defend herself from the blue lightning attack. The main character hit the ground. He thought they were being ambushed. The mercenaries jumped to their feet. One of them said she thought she had just been killed, but was alive again. Another nun shouted that the lust for murder was coming from behind the door. The commander slyly said that something on the other side of the door was warning them not to approach. But the stronger the defense mechanism, the more valuable the thing inside. The captainess stepped forward. She told her subordinates that the thing inside the door had aroused her curiosity. The protagonist looked at the purple mist outside the door. He realized that he had to proceed very carefully. The protagonist saw a shard of the soul of the world inside the door. Such a shard could cause war between countries, so it was hidden in such an inconspicuous place. The mercenary shouted that the treasure should be handed over to the queen immediately. The nun said, in a joyful voice, that she could attain the highest glory. This treasure is the reward of heaven for her devotion. The system informed the host of the updated assignments. He was to take ownership of the world. Bai thought to himself that the final goal of the assignment was not inferior in complexity to the main line of becoming king. The guy got into a fighting stance. He was expecting a fierce battle. The mercenary was near the boss. He told the woman that the shard was beautiful and attracted many moths. The boss demanded of the women that they become a maternal clone. They must bear many offspring. The woman told her companion that he was only level 45 against their attack. He wouldn't last 30 seconds. The nun said that the artifact alarmed the reborn boss in front of them. The commander angrily commanded her subordinates to all remove maximum combat restrictions. The main character was surprised because of the fact that the women had items that detected the reborn. The commander told her subordinates to attack the reborn and not give him the slightest chance. A whole group of nuns rushed at the opponent. They attacked him with various weapons. There was a very bright and yellow explosion. It consumed the reborn boss. The boss told the women he didn't expect them to be able to detect it anyway. The nun told the commander that they concentrated on attacking the boss, and the boss is still alive. This reborn was very strange. The mutant shouted to the women that they had discovered his true identity. Now they must die so that nothing will be left of them. He launched the lilac liquid against the rivals. The nuns collapsed to the floor. They felt intense pain. The blood of the reborn was eating away at their bodies. Bai thought to himself that he had no informational advantage against the reborn. He figured the women would probe the boss's strengths and weaknesses. The nun said angrily that there was no reason to be afraid. She used several magical skills to increase her strength and recovery. The commander told her subordinates that for the sake of the church and the queen, they must obtain a shard of the soul of the world. She pointed her finger in the direction and demanded that the nuns kill the reborn. The women abruptly snapped out of their seats and ran forward at the boss with guns. The boss angrily told the rivals that they would not be able to escape their NPC fate after all. The women suddenly stopped. Their bodies couldn't move and even their consciousness stopped. A woman screamed fearfully for her mother not to beat her. Another nun repeated to herself about her beating heart. The commander realized she was surrounded by illusion. She felt suffocation and mind decay. An angry man shouted to the girl that she was a cursed witch. He demanded that she return his child. The woman couldn't understand why this strange man was appearing in her mind. She heard a voice saying that the time of ascension had come. From today, they would all be Baiji's children. The monster thought to himself that he had been given a new life. To him, the name Baiji seemed foreign. The nun thought to herself that she had been very much subjected to illusions. She had almost perverted the faith. The captainess demanded of her subordinates that they come to their senses quickly. Several ravenous purple insects pounced on the nuns and began to attack them. The boss yelled to the woman that she was able to use her will to suppress his neurotoxin. He decided to use something special against her to break her. The nun shouted to her rival that there was no word for submission in the teachings of the Blood Rose. Commander activated Bloody Bloom of level 1. This skill stimulated the body to achieve a higher level of strength. The boss decided to use 4 companions with fully open 3rd level against the nun. Rival angrily asked the woman when she was going to get over it. The nuns mused and shouted loudly. The commander told the sisters that their deeds would shine. Souls would return to blood and roses. The boss told his rival that she had killed her comrades. He decided to enter the arena using the color purple, which symbolized strength. The fighter shouted to his opponent that he was going to play with her. He got into a fighting stance. A woman threw a bloody chain against her rival. She shouted at him that he shouldn't have done that. The boss grabbed the red chain. He shouted to the nun that he was doing it all in good faith. The fighter abruptly tore at his red chains and pulled his opponent to his side. The boss yanked the woman toward him in a very sudden motion. She couldn't stay on her feet. The boss stood a short distance away from his rival. He thought to himself that he was very fierce. The fighter yanked her opponent sharply towards her and yelled that she couldn't take it one more time. The fighter swung his hand sharply. He told the nun that she was a rare experimental material, so he wouldn't kill her yet. There was a very large explosion, and the woman was blown far to the side. A nun was sitting on earth. She said that ordinary strength was not enough to defeat the reborn. She decided to use all her power and destroy herself and her boss. Liloi said with a smile that if the queen didn't get the soul shard of the world, she wouldn't let anyone else get it. The nun said her life could be a nurturing environment, and something could blossom in it. Liloi activated the holy blood flower within herself. It could consume anything. The boss felt his blood being sucked out. There were green tentacles on his body. Bugus told his rival that his blood wasn't so good anymore. He was able to fight off the flower. The nun told her opponent that she couldn't kill him with a powerful skill. She is no different from the girl she was as a child. A boss told a rival that he would kill her just to blow off steam. The woman thought she should have died 10 years ago. Liloi remembered flickering images from her past. She had been saved by the Great Queen, and now she could leave without regrets. The protagonist appeared from the side. He sliced through the tentacles of the Bugus with a mighty blow. The nun was very surprised to see the guy next to her. Bai said it was his turn to act now. The protagonist told the woman she could leave. Their mission accomplished. Liloy wasn't happy about losing four sisters just to pave the way for a guy. The boss looked angrily at the guy and said that the guy's an NPC who doesn't know his place. The protagonist angrily told his opponent that if he faced an experienced opponent, he would definitely lose. The boss asked his rival, did he really analyze everything correctly? There was an explosion and the main character bounced aside. The boss did not understand where his opponent had gone. Liloy was very surprised when she saw the main character carrying her in his arms. She didn't need any help. The protagonist shouted to the woman that he himself was a reborn. The system announced that players after the 10th level could distribute experience points themselves. The boss realized that the person in front of him was indeed a reborn. Liloy looked at the guy and said she didn't notice his true nature. Not even the warning devices reacted to him. The boss said with surprise to his rival that the latter was a reborn like himself. The main character found out about the Camp of the Dark Reborn. He used to think that it was all a battle royal mode, where everyone for himself. The boss told the guy that he was very naive. He wouldn't explain the rules to him. The boss angrily told the man that he would kill him with his unique ability. The protagonist rushed forward. He told his opponent that he wasn't interested in his ability. Liloy realized that a special feeling was coming from the essence of the reborn. She sat on the ground and didn't understand what was really going on. Boogies hit the protagonist with a powerful punch. The guy was falling from a height downwards. Boogus angrily told his rival that his wealth of experience is simply escape and panic. The main character used lightning cut against the boss. The monster's body was wounded and it screamed. Liloy frightenedly thought that the protagonist would be able to overpower the boss with great speed. The boss looked angrily at his opponent and said he would play a game of speed with him. Boogus activated the mutation's 100-fold multiplication at top speed. The monster looked at the man very viciously and attacked him with fire. Boogus was very startled when he noticed that the guy in front of him had disappeared somewhere. The monster was very angry. He couldn't even hit the guy at top speed. Bai decided to give his opponent an explanation. The main character shouted that he used a skill called Shadow Step. He had the ability to disappear from the real world and briefly enter the shadow world. The monster was injured after the lightning cut. It screamed loudly. Boogus shouted without his battle mask, his plans ruined by a reborn like himself. The boss shouted to his subordinates to listen to the call of the Holy Father. He promised to grant them the supreme life. Bugis began the call of the insects. Liloy heard a very loud noise. She covered her head with her hands. She thought she might turn into some kind of insect. The protagonist was standing in front of the boss. He said that you have to rely on the tactic of wearing down the enemy with numbers. Then you have to engage and finish the battle yourself. The protagonist got his bell to summon souls. It needed the ashes of a certain character to activate it. The resurrected village headman suddenly appeared at the side. The boss was astonished when he saw the old man. The headman used his weapon to start smashing the monsters around him. Boogus was very angry because his opponent could parry every punch he threw. He didn't understand why there was such a difference between them. The boss yelled to his opponent that he didn't want to be a loser anymore. He didn't want to lose anymore. Boogus told his opponent that as long as he had the Mirasol shard, he could not lose. Bai was at his back. There was a very bright explosion. The protagonist thought his consciousness had reconnected. Bai was surprised to see a young scientist, Bigus, in his 40s. He realized that he had seen the boss's past life.